All right, everyone, welcome back for our deep dive today. We're going to be tackling the EU's Green Claims Directive.
Yeah.
If you're a business selling anything at all in the European market, this is going to be a must listen.
Yeah, it's a big one, and we're going right to the source with this one, using the EU Commission's proposal as our roadmap.
Love it when we get to go straight to the source with these things.
Right.
Okay, so to set the stage here,
Mm-hmm.
the green market, I mean, it's exploding right now.
Yeah.
Consumers are all over products with an eco-friendly label, like it's going out of style.
Right, and for a good reason. I mean, people want to make sustainable choices.
Totally, yeah.
But it begs the question, how much of it is actually legit?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, a 2020 study found that over half, like 53.3% of environmental claims were either vague, misleading, or straight up unsubstantiated.
It's a lot more than people would think, right?
Right.
It's a real problem, and it's why the EU decided to step in and, well,
Yeah, lay down the law.
lay down the law, exactly.
Yeah, bring some clarity to this whole thing.
Yeah, because, I mean, think about it. You're a consumer. You're trying to do the right thing for the planet, but you're faced with this wall of eco-labels and jargon.
It's overwhelming.
It's impossible to tell what's real and what's not.
Exactly. And then on top of that, the EU found that nearly half of the eco-labels out there had little to no real verification behind them.
Yeah, it's a recipe for consumer confusion.
Total jungle out there. And I can only imagine that for those companies that are genuinely trying to be sustainable,
Yeah.
this whole greenwashing thing is a major headache.
Absolutely. It undercuts their efforts. It creates an uneven playing field, and that's what the EU is trying to fix with this directive.
Okay, so leveling the playing field, making sure everyone's playing by the same rules.
Exactly.
But how does this directive actually work? I mean, what's the magic formula here?
It really boils down to one key thing: substantiation.
Okay,
You've got to be able to back up your environmental claims with evidence.
so no more greenwashing fluff, basically.
No more fluff. You've got to have the data to back it up. And it's not just a tiny piece of the puzzle either.
Right.
You need to consider the entire life cycle of your product or your business practices.
So no more slapping a green leaf on your packaging because you use recycled paper.
Exactly. It's about transparency, accountability.
Yeah.
No more cherry-picking data or shifting the blame down the line.
Got it. So if a company is claiming that their T-shirt is eco-friendly, they can't just point to the fact that they use energy-efficient lighting in their factory. They need to think about where they source their materials, how much water is used in the process, even how that T-shirt is transported to the consumer.
You've got it. The EU wants to see a holistic approach, companies owning the impact of their choices every step of the way.
Okay, so this is getting serious. This isn't just a gentle nudge in the right direction. This is a pretty big deal for companies.
It is.
So what does this actually mean for companies on a practical level? What do they need to do to comply with this directive?
Yeah.
I imagine there are some marketing teams out there who are feeling a little bit of the heat right now.
Yeah, probably more than a few. But you know what? This is actually a chance for companies to get ahead of the curve, to build that trust with consumers.
Right. Transparency is key.
Absolutely. So once those claims have been scrubbed clean, the next step is all about data.
Okay.
And I mean, good data, solid data, the kind of data that backs up those claims without a shadow of a doubt.
So no more relying on industry averages or those vague generalizations.
Nope. The EU is basically saying, show me the receipts. We want to see the primary company-specific data.
Okay, so really digging deep into their own practices.
Exactly. Tracking everything: energy consumption, water usage, waste generation, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds like a lot of work, but I guess that's the point, right?
It is. It's about proving that you're not just all talk.
Right. Walking the walk.
Exactly. And this is even more important when you're making those comparative claims, you know, the ones you see everywhere in advertising.
Oh, yeah. Like our product is 50% greener than the competition.
Right. And under this new directive, those comparisons are going to have to be rock solid.
Okay, so how do you even measure something like that? I mean, how do you even compare the greenness of two different products?
Well, first of all, you can't just compare apples to oranges.
Right, different products, different impacts.
Exactly. And that's why this directive is pushing for a common basis for assessments.
Okay, so making sure everyone's playing by the same rules.
Exactly. So you can't just compare a cotton T-shirt to a synthetic one and claim victory because yours used less water, for example.
Right, because the overall environmental impact might be totally different.
Exactly. And then there are the claims about future environmental performance.
Right, like we're going to be carbon neutral by 2040.
Those claims, they need to have some teeth behind them, concrete, time-bound commitments with clear action plans, not just vague promises.
Okay, so no more kicking the can down the road.
Nope. The EU wants to see action and accountability. And here's the thing, all this data, all this evidence, it's not supposed to just sit in some internal report gathering dust.
Okay, so this is where it all circles back to the consumer.
Precisely, the directive is really clear about making this information accessible to the public. Think QR codes on product labels that link to detailed environmental reports or clear explanations on websites.
So transparency isn't just about what you're doing, it's about how you're communicating it.
Exactly. Consumers want to know what's going on, and they deserve to have that information readily available.
Absolutely. It's all about empowering consumers to make informed choices. But, we've been talking a lot about individual companies and their claims, but what about those broader eco-labels?
Ah, yes, the symbols that are supposed to signal eco-friendliness, but are they actually reliable?
Right, because there are so many labels out there, it's hard to know what's legit and what's not. So how does this directive tackle the wild world of eco-labels?
Yeah,
Yeah, it really is a jungle of eco-labels out there.
it is, and that's something the EU is trying to tackle head-on with this directive.
Okay, so how are they planning to make those little symbols more trustworthy?
Well, no more of this just deciding you're eco-friendly and slapping on a badge.
Yeah, right.
The directive is really clear about this. Eco-labels from now on need to be backed up by verified certification schemes.
Oh, that's good. No more self-certification then.
Exactly. You need that independent third-party verification.
Yeah.
It's going to make a huge difference for consumer trust.
Huge. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people are looking for right now is that reassurance that something external is actually checking these things out.
Absolutely. And not only that, but the sheer number of eco-labels is a problem in itself. Too many. And it's just overwhelming.
Totally. Just adds to the confusion.
Right. But the good news is the directive aims to streamline all of that.
Okay.
To make it less of a jungle for consumers to navigate.
Yeah, less is more in this case, definitely.
Exactly. They're introducing stricter rules for creating any new labels. So
Uh-huh.
hopefully we'll see a lot less confusion going forward and a lot more clarity.
That's a relief. It sounds like they're really trying to cover all the bases here. But, it's one thing having all these rules on paper, but how is the EU going to actually enforce them? I mean, what are the consequences for companies that are caught greenwashing?
That's the thing. They're not messing around with this. Each member state is going to have what they're calling competent authorities in charge of making sure companies are towing the line. They'll have real teeth, too, with the power to investigate demand information, and if necessary, they can issue penalties for non-compliance.
Okay, so this isn't just a slap on the wrist. We're talking real consequences here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What kind of penalties are we talking about?
It runs the gamut. I mean, you're looking at hefty fines for starters, injunctions that stop companies from using those misleading claims. They could even lose their eco-labels altogether, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's definitely going to make companies think twice. I mean, it sounds like this directive is really about to shake things up in a big way.
I think so, too. It's not just about ticking boxes anymore. It's about pushing for real change towards a truly sustainable future.
Yeah, and hopefully setting a precedent for other parts of the world to follow suit.
Exactly. It's a big step, but a necessary one.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the booming but chaotic green market to the EU's plan to clean things up with this new Green Claims Directive.
We really have. It's a complex issue, but an incredibly important one.
For sure. And for anyone listening who wants to dig deeper into the nitty-gritty, we'll be sure to link to the EU Commission's proposal in our show notes.
Always good to read the source material.
Always. All right, so as we reach the end of another deep dive, what can we leave our listeners with today? What food for thought can we leave them with?
That's a good question. How about this? The EU is really focused on what companies are saying about their products, making sure those claims are legit. But is that enough? I mean, will stricter rules be enough to drive real change? Or do we need to look at the products themselves, how they're designed, manufactured, the whole life cycle?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's like we always say, it's not just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, everyone, that's all the time we have for today, but the conversation doesn't have to end here. Join us on social media. Let us know your thoughts on the EU's Green Claims Directive. And until next time, stay curious.